You are listening to the Women in Youth Ministry podcast hosted by me, your CEO, Heather Lea Campbell. Women in Youth Ministry is an organization that seeks to elevate the voices of women in a male-saturated field. Go to womeninyouthministry.com to read our blog, follow us on social media, join our online community, purchase our merch, or support our Patreon. Now, here is Heather and this week's guest. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Women in Youth Ministry podcast. My name is Heather Campbell, and I am your founder and your CEO of Women in Youth Ministry. And it's been 2 years since we've last released an episode. I know. And, we have gone through some things. We usually pause the podcast for conference season, and then we didn't pick it up. Because there were some things that I was going through, and and that's what we're going to talk about this today. So this season, as we get this podcast back up off the ground, I want to take the opportunity to introduce to our community all of the different faces that make up our board, our conference team, our mod team, all the people behind the scenes, because we've added a ton of people to our team this year. And so we decided, let's start the season off by having an episode where I am interviewed. And I thought there is nobody better to interview me than my dear, dear friend, Kat Bear. Hi, Kat.
Hi, Heather. Thanks for having me. I'm grateful to be here. And thanks for the honor of getting to interview you on your own show.
Right? It's fun. I mean, I really don't think that there's anybody better to interview me about the past few years of my life, because you have been, you've been a part of my inner circle. You're you're probably the only person who consistently calls me weekly. It's like Wednesday, 9 a.m., Kat's calling.
Kat's calling. She is jogging. She's winded. She's going, how are you? What's going on? What's going on in your week? So thanks for picking up the phone. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. 2-hour phone calls. Sometimes kids screaming, sometimes cats screaming.
Yeah, all of those things can be expected when you get a phone call from Kat Bear. But hey, thanks for letting me come on the podcast and for letting me talk about you. You're one of my favorite subjects, so I'm excited to get to talk about you for a while. And I do think this is also a gift to our community, because no one in Women in Youth Ministry, there's no one in Women in Youth Ministry who doesn't know your name, who doesn't know your face, who doesn't know some of your gifts, because I see them in action, but not all of them have had the pleasure of getting to know you as a person. And I find that the more I've gotten to know you, the more I've been impressed with your integrity and your values and your soul and your commitment to the work that you do. And so I'm really excited to get to kind of do a little bit of unveiling of all the great that you really are to our community. Let me get to know you a little bit.
Well, I'm already crying, so...
Let's do it. Okay. So can we start at the beginning? For those who might not be as familiar, can you tell us a little bit about how you grew up, what that was like, and then we'll get into your call to ministry. But I want to start at the beginning.
Yeah. So I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, in a town that nobody knew about until 2014 called Ferguson. And I grew up in a family that was impoverished. My parents got pregnant with me really early on. My mom was just 19. And we lived in a more impoverished neighborhood. My parents had some beef with religion and decided early on that they would not dictate how their kids were raised religiously, but that their kids could be allowed to pursue whatever they wanted. And so a family friend brought me to church when I was 5 years old, instantly fell in love, and was my safe place. And when I didn't always know what was going on, while I didn't always know what was going on at home that made me feel unsafe, I knew it just wasn't my place. But church was. And so the church bus would come and pick me up every Sunday, starting when I was 5 or 6 years old. And I'd put on one of my 2 Sunday dresses and I'd go to church, and it was just my thing. The children's choir, being in all the pageants and musicals, and sitting in the front row with my friends. And it was all just a huge part of my upbringing. And I was just really fortunate to grow up in a community too that was so diverse as well. And really benefited from being around people who didn't look like me and didn't think like me and just loved where I grew up and lived, even though my home life was so hard.
Right. Do you live in a community pretty similar to the one you grew up in now?
No, I wouldn't say so. My neighborhood is very diverse now, but I wouldn't say it's impoverished. I mean, I really grew up uh, like the part of St. Louis that I originally grew up in is called Normandy, and it's like if you know, you know. And that neighborhood, like I drove back years later, and after we sold that house, it was like it blew up. It was blown up for insurance money, which I'm not supposed to laugh, but like that's the neighborhood, right? Like that was a
Right.
really rough one. And then the house that I moved to in third grade, I think it was, I perceived it to be pretty nice. I perceived my neighborhood because I didn't know anything different, right? And then when I moved to Indianapolis, I did originally move to a neighborhood like the one I'd grown up in, and I didn't think anything was like, quote, wrong with it. And people were telling me all the time, like, you understand, like, you live in the worst neighborhood of Indianapolis. And I had no clue because that was what I was familiar with. But it
Well,
was
and the
a,
congregation you worked in Indianapolis was wealthy.
affluent. And
So
they
they're
were
like,
afraid
ooh.
for me. And I was like, what? This is like what I grew up in. I don't see anything. But it
Yeah.
was good. It was good to remind people, like, hey, so like people in the hood have dignity too. And just because you
Right.
live in like Hamilton County, Indiana, doesn't mean that you're better than people.
Right.
And I really do think like people don't look at me and go, that girl, you know, like she grew up in the literal hood, but you know, I did and I loved it.
I do appreciate that we got to touch on that a little bit because I do think that diverse set of experiences and the ability to float in and out of different social contexts
Mhm.
and paradigms has made you a valuable leader. I also think it's a big part of your career, whether it would never be a skill you would put on a resume to be like, hey, I can blend in with people of any socioeconomic status and feel right at home, or at least make other people feel comfortable. But I do think it's a skill that you've brought to your leadership in WIM, which is a pretty diverse group, to be able to say like, hey, that you feel you're a pretty complex social identity. You're able to kind of jump into a lot of different context socially. So I think that's really cool. I'm glad we get to touch on a little bit. Okay, so church kid, pulled into the fold by neighbors, communities, loved it right away, felt deep connection. When did that deep connection start to become a call into ministry itself?
Yeah. So when I was in middle school, my church went through this massive church split. North County, Ferguson, that part of St. Louis had gone through some massive white flight in the 80s, 90s, 2000s. And at this point, it was the early 2000s. And my pastor got in front of my church and said, hey, so like everyone in this church used to live in this community, but you all have moved away. And now you're driving 20, 25 minutes to come to this church. This church is in a primarily Black community. We are not engaging that community. And I'm just curious if God is calling us to be a church of our community. And if we were to be a church of our community, how would that shift the way that we do church? Would it mean that our music might look different? Would it mean that our leadership might look different? Would it mean that our pews look different? Would it mean the way we do outreach changes? The way we do everything? It might change. And he cast this really strong vision. I felt really inspired. I was a neighborhood kid. Like
Yeah.
again, you know, I was this bus kid that came into church. I
Yeah.
loved where I lived. I loved my everything. Oh, but the church did not. And the church went through a split. Most of the white people left. I had just gotten into youth group and I was like so excited for all of the things that would come with youth group. But the entire youth group left. The white youth pastor left. And now I'm the only youth left. And I couldn't choose a new church because like how does like a seventh, eighth grader just go and find a new church on their own? But also I didn't
Who
want
would come
to.
and pick them up because you couldn't drive?
Right. But also I didn't want to. This was my
Right.
church and it did like raise me for what it's worth. And so we got a new youth pastor and he just really changed our church for the better. And the church inherited a lot of the traits that Black churches take on, which is that they believe in their young people and they'll do whatever it takes to center the church around young people. And so it changed everything. It changed the way we did outreach and it changed the way that we did worship, and it changed the way we did leadership, everything. And so it was a Southern Baptist church, so it had that conservative fundamentalist theology. But honestly, I never experienced what I would describe as like hatefulness or anything like that, because the church was so based on love and how do we
Mm.
support young people. And so so all of a sudden there's all these opportunities being afforded me as a young person. Like, oh,
Right.
also we kind of got rid of some white church practices like puppets and Christian clowning.
I'm not anti-puppet. I can't say
I
I'm anti-puppet.
I am anti-Christian clowning.
I don't know what that is, but I think I'm against it on principle.
I was a Missouri show me clown for Jesus.
I'm sorry. Listeners, I want you to know that part of me wants us to pause right here and take 15 minutes to talk about that. But I also want to be respectful of Heather's entire life journey, which includes more than her being a Missouri show me clown for Jesus. But sound off in the comments if you'd like us to do a bonus episode in which we just dive into that for a while.
How about I meet you halfway and I just like include a photo?
That's the dream. That's the dream. Just
My,
show notes. It's just a photo of you as the show me clown for Jesus.
my Christian clown name was Bubbles.
That's right.
Yeah.
If I had to guess your Christian clown name, that would be my top 5 guesses.
Right. But anyway, so we started doing praise dancing, which I just like look back on and I'm like, girl, I did not have
Did you
enough
do praise
rhythm.
dancing
I
as well?
did, I did, I did.
Wow, look at
I
you.
know, but the beautiful thing about all of this, like I'm like leading worship twice a month, which is not my gift. Like it started out, we just had a youth Sunday once a month, and then they were like, let's have youth lead every Sunday too. And so I'm like leading the youth Sunday, but then I'm also up there like on the other Sundays too. And then they were like, what if our young people pass their offering plate? Except, we're Southern Baptists and women can't pass the offering plate. But we want our youth to do it. So could we like kind of make a change in our rules? And so then
Yeah.
we were passing the offering plate, which meant that now adult women could pass the offering plate.
Wow.
And so,
Trailblazing.
right? So we just kept making these allowances. And then as my youth pastor became busier and busier, he's having me teach youth groups. I'm like 16 years old, teaching on the apocalyptic literature of Daniel. Do not recommend. And he's down the hall. That's where I really don't recommend it, teaching children's ministry while I'm leading youth group. And so
Right.
slowly, I mean, I'm just doing all this stuff in this church. And so I'm like 16 years old. And my youth pastor says to me, so when you graduate, are you going to take over the youth ministry? And I said, absolutely not. And I got like really irritated by that, because my dream was to be Oprah, as a normal dream is. And I wanted to have my own talk show, and I wanted to help people, and I didn't want to be poor. I was tired of being poor. I mean, when I was 16 years old, you have to understand, I mean, my parents were drug addicts, and they abandoned my sister and I when I was 14 years old, as all that stuff was going down in my church. I was taking care of my sister full time. I was trying to keep my grades up in school. We didn't have any utilities in my house when I was 16 years old. For most of high school, had no heat, which meant no hot water, no use of stove or oven, none of that. I was cooking everything out of a microwave. I was living off of the food pantry. I was just trying to raise my little sister, who is 7 years younger than me. And this idea of being able to help young people didn't make sense. And I remember saying over and over again, I'm a hot mess teenager. How could I care for other hot mess teenagers?
Yeah.
But more and more people in the church kept coming up to me and saying, Heather, like, we see this gift in you, and like, have you considered ministry and this, that, and the other? And I think it was about a 6-month period where I was just feeling frustrated and upset with God that I could be going through all this stuff in my life. I mean, I was depressed. I was upset.
Right.
Like I was not a happy teenager.
I mean, that's an unbelievable amount of stress and pressure to put on a young person.
Yeah.
And to expect them to just like bear it with a smile is unreasonable. And so like the idea that you were serving in the midst of that kind of like legitimately traumatic adolescence is already a big testament to like that this was your impulse. But for people to be asking more of you and being like, you seem to be handling this, take on more responsibility, I can understand why that would feel like an unwelcome burden, even if it was prophetic in a sense. Like, even if, yes, they were right, they saw something in you. I can't imagine I would be able to like hear that in the space that you were in.
For sure. And I think there's this piece of me too that felt like I was living a lie because, Christians are
Wow.
supposed to have hope and I was depressed. I was
Right.
self-harming. I just wanted someone to pay attention to me. Like I really
Right.
wanted
And not just your
someone,
usefulness.
right. And like I wanted someone to see that I was hurting because I felt I was
Right.
hiding everything at home from everyone. And it's like people knew something was wrong because I needed these resources, but no one knew how bad it was.
Right.
And it was hard. I mean, I like started drinking and partying and I was trying to live that life. I was not built for that life. Just gonna be honest. It just
Okay.
wasn't for me. Uh,
Yeah.
so anyway, I had this moment at summer camp before my senior year where I was like praying. It was cry night, and I was praying and upset with God, and I felt like God was telling me to look up. And I looked around and I saw the teenagers in the room all praying and laying hands on one another and praying for each other and crying too. And I really felt like I could hear God's audible voice say, "This is what you're meant to be." Um,
Wow.
and so I surrendered it and said, "Okay, this is what I'm going to do." And so I went and I ran to my youth pastor and I said, "Okay, Pastor Ryan, like I'm ready. Like I think God's calling me into youth ministry. But like one question, I've never seen a woman do this. Can women do this?" And he was like, "Well, I guess not."
Mm.
And I was like, "What?" And so it's
Yeah.
like, but all these things added up to tell me I'm called to ministry. I mean, like other kids
Right.
are playing school when they got home from school. I was playing Sunday school with my little sister. Like
Yeah.
this was it. Like there was no question that this was my future. But now I'm being told as a woman, it's a hard no. So okay, so I went to Southern Baptist College. And I'm a girl of grit. I think as you can tell in my life up to that point, and as we continue talking about it, and I've just always been a pioneer in my life, and have always just believed that like I have a really clear view of what God wants for me, and I'm gonna follow it, even if no one else gets it. And so I went to the
Right.
Southern Baptist College where I was the only girl who wanted to be a pastor and not marry one. And tried to beat all the boys in my classes. And by my sophomore year of college, started a women's a ministry, a club for all of the women in the Department of Ministry and Theology. And
Mm.
it was called the Redford Ladies because Redford was the name of the College of Ministry and Theology. And I started hosting these once a month gatherings and trying to empower young women with the hopes that maybe they would like use their degrees and not just marry a man. And and that was like this really cool thing that I did. And when I graduated, I got my first youth pastor position when I was 20 because the church was like, we have one girl. I guess we'll allow a female to be the youth pastor.
Right.
And that's kind of what happened. It just like I followed God's call and I tried to bring other women in it with me and fought against the patriarchy in my Southern Baptist College and just tried to do the damn thing.
Yeah. I'm so intrigued and struck by it. And I want to keep like circling back around this point because I feel like I'm hearing the theme emerge, this sense of like in a point of like that your response to like struggle or suffering or need is to build your own support network and to like build the circle, like to build the circle. Like, oh, I don't have a church, like I don't have a youth, like I don't have a church. Okay, I'm gonna go find one. Like, oh, I don't have a youth group, like I guess I'm gonna lead one. Like, oh, I don't feel supported as a woman in youth ministry. I'm guessing gonna build that. And how that's both like beautiful and like path clearing, but it also, and not to like put too fine a point on it, but we'll come back to this back of it. We'll come back to this the back half of the conversation, but it also leaves you like a little bit vulnerable because it doesn't make it obvious that you're creating the resources that you still need, that you still need support because you're already the leader. So people are like, well, obviously she doesn't need support. She like started the whole thing, but you're creating the support network that you wish you had without necessarily without necessarily meeting that need first before you try to start trying to meet it for other people. Um, and that's like a really beautiful testament to your character, and to like your call, but it's also hard, I imagine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like I think that people have always looked at me like there's this like really strong person
Yeah.
and she's like doing the hard thing for herself. But I really wish that someone would support me once in a
Yep.
while,
Yep.
like
And I think we can circle back and dig a little bit more in this when we get to the kind of like why Women in Youth Ministry took a year off and where we're at now. And like because I think some of the moves you made in the past couple of years have really started to change that story in your life. And so I don't want to like dig too far in it right now, but
Yeah.
I did want to like point out that like, hey, so for anyone listening back, like pay attention to that. It's gonna come back.
Yeah. Oh, it's a
So
thread for sure.
it's a thread. We see a thread where the spirit is working, a story is being told.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, okay. So you essentially started what is a proto women in youth ministry
I did.
at a Southern Baptist college. Um, and when did women youth ministry as we know it start to enter the story?
Yeah. So after college, I graduated in 2012. There was that whole election thing that happened that year. And I remember being handed a pamphlet on how to vote in the upcoming election. And that was
Oof.
my last day at the Southern Baptist Church.
Yeah.
And so I started discerning what was next, followed a call to Indianapolis in 2013. And a few months in, I was just feeling so supported in my call and in the Methodist world as a woman in ministry, where it's like female youth pastors, I think, probably exist more than male youth pastors in the
Yes.
Methodist Church. Statistically, they do. Statistically, they still get paid a hell of a lot less, but that's for another rant of
Helen.
another day.
But there are a lot of them.
But there are a lot, yeah. And so I was like, I want to create a space because even though I had like left that world of being isolated, I still saw so many other women feeling isolated. And so
Yeah.
I started my own little Facebook group. It's Women in Youth Ministry, and it had like 200 or 500 members for like a really long time. At first, it was just a place where we complained about being a woman in ministry and complained about all the other Facebook groups on the internet. And then as we were growing people, it was like, oh, so maybe we should change up our tone a little bit and focus more on the joy of it all and less on the griping.
So you feel like it kind of like emerged both as creative space, but also as kind of like a reaction to some of the other online communities for youth ministers
A
that
thousand
we're not going to name
percent.
names.
Yeah. Well, and part of it was I had been doing some work for a youth ministry organization that literally hired me to be the token female. And then I
Yeah.
was doing all the token female roles. And when I felt like they were being a little nasty towards some people and not super pastoral, kept trying to have hard conversations, they weren't willing to have it. And it was
Yeah.
just one of those things where it's like they didn't respect me the way they respected each other.
Right.
And I was fortunate while I was in that space to have a subgroup for women in ministry while I was in that space. However, the men still had to administrate it.
Mm,
And so I was like, yeah, like, so it
yeah.
was, I did build my group a little out of like, I can't stand these men right now. And
Right.
that energy was the energy that led the group for a few years. But yeah, eventually, and I'll talk a little bit more about why we started getting more intentional. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, we've been a thing for 11 years now,
Yeah.
and we have a podcast. Here we go. And we started local meetups around the country and a national conference. And we did some mentoring and some coaching. And like, it's just a bigger thing. And now we have
Right.
6,000 members and are
Look
one of
at
the
that.
safest places on the internet.
Yeah. One of the best parts about the internet is the Women in Youth Ministry group. I would say that.
I think half the people in our group only have Facebook for the group, which probably tells me I just need to nix Facebook, but it's really hard.
It's where people are. It's where people are. It's
It is.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so yes, it's grown into conferences and years and all in the same while you have grown in your career and you've grown in your kind of like position and all of ministry. And when I met you, you were this I guess when we met in person for the first time. We know each other online. But we met in person for the first time, I think at that first Women in Youth Ministry conference in 2021.
Two.
In 2022. And at that point, you were working at a big Methodist church in Indianapolis. I was working at a big Methodist church in Texas. And you were married and you were presenting this whole kind of like, we are doing it. We are CEO. We are boss girl. We are wearing our glitter blazer. We are ready to go. And in the years since that time, there have been a lot of changes in Heather Campbell's world, particularly since like I guess more like 2023. is when summer 2023 started to change. In the last 2 years, a lot of things have changed. So I'd love to kind of like walk through that a little bit, like however you want to frame those changes as interconnected, as sequential, as yeah, I would love to kind of talk through everything that's changed since 2023.
Yeah, the only thing that hasn't changed is I still love pink and glitter.
Yeah.
Everything else
Beautiful.
is a little different.
No, your eye makeup's pretty much the same.
I
You're
did
really
put
good at that.
on glitter eyeshadow today for the occasion, and I'm wearing my Taylor
Wow.
Swift inspired merch,
That's
and I'm wearing the
good.
lipstick she wore on her first podcast ever. I just feel like I need the.
Wow.
I know, right?
You really bring your energy into the space.
Yeah, I need it, because I'm trying to find my Travis Kelsey. But anyway, so
I don't think he's going to watch this podcast,
no, I
but
don't. I need my own. Like, I don't want to steal
no,
hers. Like, babes
I
work
don't.
hard. So,
Great.
so to answer your question, in 2020, when COVID happened, I joined a cohort, a coach, like a coaching certification cohort through April Diaz's company, Azer & Co. And she had reached out to me for years about getting a coaching certification, and it just didn't work out. And because COVID happened, they pivoted to an online model. And she was like, "Do you want to do this?" And I was like, "Sure." And I got my church to pay for it because the way I pitched it to them is, now that I'm a supervisor, I don't like, I wasn't feeling like I was being a very good supervisor.
Mm,
And I wanted some training, and that's how I pitched it to the church. And the church was like, "Yeah, like, we'll support you in that way," which was really great of them to do. And so I joined this coaching cohort. And I remember our first day, we're sharing why we're in it. And I said, "Yeah, I don't think I'm a good boss." And April just tore me apart in the holiest way. I was like, "Why do you think that about yourself?" And I just started saying all these terrible false negatives about myself, false narratives about myself. And she was like, basically called me out, was like, "This is all BS. Like, what's the truth?" And I remember
mm,
freaking out and crying and shutting off my camera because I was like, "What's happening right
yeah,
now?"
gosh.
And like, why do I believe all this nasty stuff about myself? And like, what's happening? So
Right.
anyway, I get through this coaching certification program, and I came out of it with a lot of confidence. And you typically set a goal, and I set a goal to restructure my staff to better support our gifts. And I did, and it ended up being so great for us. So I'm proving to myself I am a good supervisor, I am a good
Right.
person. But there were some things that were going on at that church. I mean, honestly, it was toxic from the very first week that I was there, but the mission was
Mm,
really good. And I
yeah.
loved being a part of this big church that did big things in its community. And I loved it. I loved my job, and I loved the people so much. But the leader at the top of the organization is a textbook narcissist. And I talked a little bit about this in Lisette's episode on narcissism that we did a few years ago. More about what happened to me, but I started calling things out. I mean, I've always been a person who speaks truth. I'm not really a yes person, but as I was gaining more confidence and starting to pack away some of negative self narratives and pack on some new positive self narratives, yeah, people didn't like that. People really loved insecure Heather. Turns out,
Right.
confident Heather is a force to be reckoned with, and people don't want her around if the challenges their perception of who they are.
Yeah.
Other people love it though. So anyway, but yeah, so I started speaking some truth and saying, "Hey, so these are all the things we say we are, and this is what we're doing behind the scenes and how we treat one another, and it's not adding up for me."
Right.
And it ended up being this really difficult situation where I was promised that leader would be removed. They were not. And I was retaliated against really
Yeah.
hard. Okay.
Yeah.
So I talked to a friend of mine who's a minister who used to work at that church. And I said, how did you know when it was time to leave? Because they'd also been there for some time. And they said to me, "Heather, I was convinced, like you are, that the problem must be me. And so I put 6 months on the calendar, and I worked on myself in that 6 months, and I put ministry in the back burner. And at the end of 6 months, I was the healthiest physically I've ever been. My marriage was the best it's ever been. My relationships with my family were the best it's ever been. And yet work was still hard. And that was how I knew I needed to leave.
Right.
And so I took that advice really literally because I really respect this person. And I said, let's put 6 months on the calendar. And so
Okay.
April was launching another cohort for women in executive leadership. And I was like, yes, I want to surround myself with a bunch of boss bitches. This is my own podcast. I'm sorry it's a ministry podcast that I've now cussed 3 times, but it's usually not like this. Usually I'm interviewing other people. Turns out I have a potty mouth. Um, but anyway, I'm with this group of just amazing women doing all kinds of things in the church, outside of the church. And April says to me, it's time to set a goal. And she's like, what do you need to do in 6 months? And I was like, And I was like, I know I don't want this goal to be about work because this whole point of the 6 months is we don't care about work. We care about Heather.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But she was like trying to dig in me, like, what's the goal? What's the goal? What's the goal? I was like, I don't know. And she was like, you do know, actually, but let's approach this from another route. You're 30 years older. What does 63-year-old Heather's life look like?
Mm.
And so I thought about it and I said, well, she has a life that's full of joy. She has a family that she's raised alongside her friends. She has a body that can keep up with the intensity of life that she desires. And she can also retire. And April said to me, what would have to change to have that life?
Yeah.
And I said, everything.
Yeah.
Everything would have to change. And like that realization that like everything was wrong in my life and like I had been trying to shove it down and ignore it and lead through it anyway was hard. And so that's what happened. And so on that very last day of that 6-month cohort, I was offered my job that I'm in now. Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm not like a big, like,
I
God's
knew
timing is
that.
always right, but like,
Yeah,
come on.
I don't think I knew that. Well, I want to take like a breather before we talk about anything else to say like I would push back against the framing that like everything in your life was wrong, you weren't doing anything right. I think like we were talking about earlier, like you're a person who is when you're in a point of need, in a point of like of lack of need, what you do is you create that for other people. So, like, of course, you would have tried to be a good supervisor before you tried to take care of yourself. Like, of course, you were in an unhealthy work environment. And so you tried to create a healthier work environment for other people. Like, that's absolutely aligned with every other pattern of how you respond to stress is that, like, when you don't have something, you try to create it for other people. Um, and so I don't think it was that like everything was wrong for your life. It's that you managed to create so much incredible good for other people. But it's like it seemed like April was the one that created the opportunity to be like, hey, you've managed to create something for other people and you haven't created it for yourself yet. Like you've created a community of safety and care and belonging and created a healthier workplace and you've created all these things, but like have you prioritize creating those things for yourself? And like a big change. I mean, like we talk about this a lot, and I don't want to spend more than 90 seconds talking about myself on this podcast. But you and I kind of had a similar kind of year where we had to upend
Yep.
our entire lives. I left my job around the same time you left your job.
Yep.
And I did the opposite of what you did personal life wise, which was I bought a house and had 2 children all at once. But it was I mean, it's a monumental change in what your personal life looks like and the shape of your work and the shape of your life. And so I think we walked through some of that together. And it's hard. I mean, it's hard. It takes and it requires an incredible amount of courage to look at your life, which is okay enough, that's comfortable enough, and decide to throw it all away and start over. Like it takes
Yeah.
an incredible amount of courage to look at something. And I think a lot of people don't. I think a lot of people stay in places that are not working for them
Yep.
because they're not bad enough to be harder than how scared they are of starting over.
Yeah. a thousand
Um,
percent.
I think the courage to start over is monumental. And I think that's what makes the difference between being able to create what you created for your life and being able to create women in youth ministry and being able to create the career you've had is because you have the courage to acknowledge that a 4 out of 10 isn't good enough for yourself or for the people around you. And that like it's worth it to risk it, to
Yeah.
risk starting over, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I could have
So
continued on. Like
you
I
could
was
have, you
like,
could
I've
work
been in
there for
this
10 more
job for
years.
10 years. Like,
Yeah.
it's the devil I know, the devil I don't. I can handle being abused because look at all this ministry that I'm creating. And,
Right.
my marriage, like, I mean, is it really all that? I mean, it's like toxic. I'm not getting my needs met, but like, is it really that bad?
Not that
And
bad. I know people who have it worse. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, I'm not, yeah, yeah. And I kept telling myself, like, there are worse situations, there's worse scenarios. And so, like, why do I need it? But this, like, I was miserable. Like, I was
Right.
miserable underneath it all.
Right.
And I needed to change it. So yeah, so I quit my job. Well, also in that time
Amazing.
period, my body was going through some really hard changes. I was essentially the woman with blood in the Bible, Saint Veronica, and um, had been bleeding profusely for 2 years, was literally living in diapers at that point, and doctors were not listening to me. And I had to have surgery and got an endocrinologist who believed in me and was like, hey, so bad news is you're diabetic. The good news is we know what's going on with you. And
Right.
now you have medicine. So I've lost 100 pounds in the last 18 months, which has been, it's not just been about the weight, it's just been about like the literal weight on my body is gone. And
Right.
I just had my checkup last week and she was like, healthy labs mean a healthy body and you have
Yes.
healthy labs. And I was like,
Yes.
it's been a long road to get here.
Yeah.
Um, and as I was going through that, I also, right after and people don't really understand the timeline of what happened with my marriage, but right after I started my new job, I found this stack of papers in the garage that my husband was supposed to clean. And that stack of papers revealed a bunch of lies that he had been hiding from me. Like he hadn't paid our taxes in 3 years and he
Mm-hmm.
lost his real estate license. And there was a lien being placed on the house that I bought for us because I didn't know he had a mortgage on his record or a foreclosure on his record until we married. And there are all these other lies too. And I remember finding this stack of papers and going, what? What just
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah.
Like, I had always struggled as a spouse to feel really seen. Like, he was my best friend in so many ways, but also I was supporting him through a lot of shame he held on to, a lot of changes he was holding on to.
Oh,
Never
did you
married.
perhaps create for him the emotional safety and security that maybe you needed for yourself?
Correct. I was a parent and not a partner. Yeah,
So,
yeah. And
yeah.
so it was like the base level of just like the misery of being parent and not a partner. But then you add on,
Right.
he's been pathologically lying to me. And I remember
Right.
calling his dad and saying, I like talked to him, and of course he played victim and cried about it all. And I was like, I can't do this right now. Like I'm like at my
Right.
breaking point. It's
Right.
like I'm 3 months into a new or 2 months into a new job. I'm
Yeah.
in diapers currently. Like
Yeah.
I need to go. And I remember
Right.
going to a Taco Bell parking lot and calling his dad and going, what is wrong with your son? And his dad said to me, he's always been like this. He's always lied. He never actually told us he didn't graduate college. He never actually told us the foreclosure. He didn't tell us A, B, C, D, E, F, G, small things, big things. And I was
Yeah.
just like, this isn't what is happening. And so
Right.
I made the choice to
What a
work on my
betrayal.
marriage for a year.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wish I hadn't, but I felt like let's give him a chance to be real about it all. And then at the end
Right.
of that year, found out that he was also on websites cheating on me. So,
Yeah.
so what do you do?
Yeah.
And so I
That's
kicked him out. I remember the first thing I did was I called our group chat.
true.
And I FaceTimed our group chat and our kind of we have about 5 of us in this who are from the Women in Youth Ministry group who are in a daily active group chat.
Yeah.
Too active, really. And I said, okay, friends, I need to tell you guys the truth about what's going on with me because I
Yeah.
need you guys to not let me back out of divorce.
Right. Right. And it's the same, and reflecting from like the other side of having been in the group chat. But also having been there for the conversation when you found a stack of papers in the garage. It's a beautiful gift of being friends with you, but also something that fits along with everything we've talked about is that because you lead with such bubbles the clown energy, because you are able to create, because even like you're talking about being a teenager and you're struggling at home, but you're able to do ministry. You're able to create places where people feel loved and welcomed. You're able to live into your call no matter what's happening like that. And I don't think it's not false at all. It's like your internal, like when you struggle, it creates this like external motivation to create safe spaces for other people. Is that I think a lot of people didn't have any awareness that there was anything wrong in your marriage. I know I didn't until we had that first phone call. And then it was like nothing about it. Like you never brought it back up until you were like, oh, by the way, he's gone. Like I'm kicking him out. And for very valid reasons. And all of us were obviously very supportive as soon as we knew what was going on. But it's really powerful to watch you make steps to give yourself the love and support that you need, especially knowing that you're so able to do that for other people. Like I know how well you show up for other people. And so it's really powerful to watch people show up for yourself the same way. And it's like, I don't think anyone takes care of people better than Heather Campbell. And so who do I want to take care of Heather Campbell? I want Heather Campbell to take care of Heather Campbell, you know? And so you should deserve other people to take care of you too, but you showing up for yourself was a really powerful thing to witness. And I'm so proud of you for being able to do all that and make it all happen and be able to show up for yourself like that.
Thank
That's
you.
kind of a rambling response, but
no. I mean, and divorce is like this really, it's like this really weird, isolating thing that you go through.
right,
I say this all the time, but like it's one of the few traumas that you go through where people wonder what you did wrong to deserve it.
right, right,
And in my situation, I did nothing wrong. I believed in a man. I put a man before myself. I don't know, but isn't that what partnership is supposed to be? Or at least
right.
that's what you
You
think it
were, yeah,
is.
yeah,
And you and I have talked a little bit about this. But you know, when you grow up, especially in that like fundamentalist church culture, you know, it's not just the purity culture that you're taught. You're like almost taught this doctrine that you're essentially in an arranged marriage by God.
yeah.
And then you meet someone who checks off the checklist you made in like seventh grade, and you're like, oh, okay, like this must be
I
my
guess
future
that's it.
husband, right?
Guess
And
that's it.
when the red flags came up during the engagement phase, I was like, oh, but we can work through this. You know, he's just never been through therapy. Like he's just never, which don't do that, guys. And I was like, you know, he's just like, he's never had these kind of hard conversations before.
I
Vulnerability is
can fix
new.
him.
Yeah, he's just a person who struggles with shame. You can grow out of that. And it's like,
Yeah,
I don't think he ever, and I really hope he does. And I really try, like, as I share this story, like I want him to heal. Like I want him
right.
to live a good life, you know,
Yeah,
and there's so much about what happened with him that I'll never, I don't know, maybe I will one day, who knows. But for now, I'm just like, I want this man to heal and
right,
be good and be healthy. I wish the best for him. I want
right,
him to be better because
right.
the trail the trail that he's like left in his life and the way that he broke my heart is like
Yeah,
he just has to get better.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you need a break?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Let's keep going.
Okay. Well, so all of this culminates together into like a long journey of choosing yourself and advocating for yourself and moving and starting a new kind of home life for yourself. You have this beautiful house that you now own by yourself and this beautiful office that you decorated by yourself. Um, and you're in this new job that allows you to kind of create some more space. And I want to kind of pull us back to this kind of thread that we've been circling around, which is changing the narrative or changing the pattern of creating the safety and care for other people before, like without creating it for yourself, and talk about what this season of life has looked like for you. Um, and folded in this is not having Women in Youth Ministry Conference last year and bringing it back this year. I think all of those things are connected together in this kind of like you've been calling it your soft girl era.
Yeah.
And I think that fits in with a pattern you have, which is like make profound things cutesy. And that doesn't make them less profound, but I think we can like unpack like software era is not about like a TikTok aesthetic. It's about like the real like work you have done to create a sustainable, like generative life for yourself. And so I'd love to talk a little about what your life looks like now.
Yeah. Gosh. Okay. Ooh. I want to back up a little bit because we did jot some notes down, and I want to really talk about how women youth ministry kind of fits into this for me. And
yes, I should have.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. But yeah. So the other thing about this is like also in the quitting my job, quitting my marriage, losing 100 pounds is also launching WYM into an LLC. And I would not have launched WYM into an LLC if it wasn't for the work that I did via coaching in order to instill some more confidence in myself. And so it was that first round of coaching that was like, I could do this, like, I'll figure it out. I have a really long narrative of not feeling financially secure. I grew up in poverty. My husband was unemployed for most of our marriage. And so like I have always supported myself financially. And so the idea of launching a business is so risky. And people told me, you're not going to make money from this. And when the women started saying, we need a conference, all my advisors told me, you're going to lose money. Like this could financially ruin you. And I just like, finances are like the thing I fear the most. I don't think people understand. Like, if you haven't lived in poverty, like long-term poverty, you don't get it. But if you do, you get it. Like, I was talking with someone the other day. Like, I check my bank account daily, multiple times a day, because that's how that lives in me and my body, and it will forever. That's the framework I live with. And yet, I decided to launch this LLC and make a conference. And I was so pleasantly surprised that first year when just about every single major youth ministry organization stepped up and said, we'll help you financially make this happen, and have continued to every year. And that's like a way of being like, oh, people believe in me and people believe in the work that I do. Like that feels really good, So anyway, so when I was in that 6-month discernment period, we were about to have our second conference. And I remember one of the conversations.
The first 6-month discernment period, not the second one.
Yes.
Or the second one.
There was only one 6-month discernment period.
Oh, so this is the executive leaders plan, not your first coaching.
Yes. Sorry. Yes, my executive leadership coaching group, the one that was like, as I was discerning leaving my church and casting this vision for 63-year-old Heather's life. One of the things that like April said to me, one of our coaches, she's like, but you're just so strong. And I was like, I swear to God, if you call me strong one more time, I'm like, I didn't say crash out because I don't think that's a phrase we had back then, but I would like got mad. And she was like, why don't you like that word? What word do you want instead? And I was like, and I just like went on this rant, and I've gone on it many times since, and I'm going to go on it now. Strong is not something you choose.
Right. You
don't choose the hand of cards you are dealt in life. I didn't choose to grow up in poverty. I didn't choose to have drug addicted parents. I didn't choose to go through this massive church split. I didn't choose to be a woman ministry in the SBC. I didn't choose to be in an abusive church that I loved. I didn't choose to have a partner who failed me. I didn't choose these things.
Right.
I'm not strong for surviving those things. But I am brave.
Right.
Because in every single situation of my life, I faced my fears.
Yeah.
And that is what I want to be. That's what I choose to be. And so when I chose that word, it was, I think, a profound moment for me to really consider, like, I'm not just strong, right? Strong means I put on armor. I'm not doing the work. Right. I'm like closing myself off. But I'm not doing that. I'm choosing, as I'm an 8 on the Enneagram, so I hate this. I'm taking off my armor. I'm exposing
on a podcast.
Yeah, I'm exposing my ooey gooey center, wearing my heart on my freaking sleeve, telling you how hard it sucks, and I'm gonna do the hard thing anyway, and I'm gonna share my story, and I'm gonna face my fears, and I'm gonna launch the LLC, and I'm gonna do all the things because that's what I feel called to do. And so we were at our second Women in Youth Ministry conference, and I remember I think I was preaching on imposter syndrome, which lol.
Sure were.
Like, what a time of my
You
life to
rewrote.
be.
Here's behind the scenes for everyone. You rewrote it like 9 times. That's
Yeah,
what I remember. Is you like frantically rewriting your imposter syndrome talk
the
multiple
night
times.
before.
We're all like hilarious.
Well, you guys told me
Uh,
to talk about it, and I was like, you know what?
but
Now I don't even really believe in imposter syndrome anymore, but
so we don't have time for this.
you don't. But yeah, I was freaking the frick out the whole time, right? So anyway,
Yeah.
we made this like tradition at the end of the conference where we go and get tattoos together. And I've never had a tattoo because I'm a chicken. And even that night, we're at the tattoo parlor. And I'm like, I'm gonna get one. I'm gonna get one. And my sister's texting me like, no, you're not. No, you're not. And and so I'm like, I'm gonna do it. So I fill out the form, and the girl, like, there's like 20 of us, and they're all like, what you gonna do? And I'm like, I don't know. And then it came to me, be brave. This is it, right? And so I got it tattooed on my
Yeah, you
wrist
did.
with 20 of my girlies all around me.
Yeah, you did.
And it has been this word that has meant so much to me, and that my mother used to gaslight me several times as I did brave things in my life. My mother and I are on great terms, by the way, now.
I'm so
She's
glad.
healthy and lovely. But yeah, it's like when I was like freaking out about leaving my church, my mom's like, well, be brave, right? And when I'm talking about leaving my marriage and all the hard things, the brave things I had to do after that, because saying no was the easy part. It was all the stuff after. And my mom would be like, well, you know what they say, Heather, be brave. That's what you got tattooed on your wrist, isn't it? She doesn't talk like that. But but it's like, yeah, why'd I do that to myself? Now I have this reminder of this promise I made to myself for the rest of my
Yeah.
eternity.
Yeah. What a bummer.
And women in youth ministry is embedded in that. Okay, so my
Right.
soft girl era. The podcast
Well,
is the,
okay. I want
yeah,
to I want to keep going a little bit. So
okay.
you're okay. So we talk about the be brave and the kind of like showing up for yourself and like making these brave choices and women in youth ministry being embedded in that. I do think for a lot of us who have found women in youth ministry to be um a really safe place, which I think there's a bunch of us that like are we talk a lot, like you've mentioned our little group chat, which is so much more than a group chat at this point. But there's also like the book club, and there's a lot of like pockets inside the larger women youth ministry community, people who have found like a really meaningful place of solidarity and connection. And I think that what you're touching on, that be brave kind of mentality, I think that is a thread that has definitely like been really profound in your life. And I don't know if the chicken or egg here, I don't know if it comes from the larger community to you or you to the larger community, but I would say that that kind of thread of like showing up for yourself and making hard choices and being able to leave things that are bad in order to choose yourself more broadly is like when you talk to women about what they're getting out of the community, that's a really common refrain. That this capacity to make brave choices in pursuit of your call, in pursuit of a healthiest version of yourself, is like one of the main things people get out of it. Like,
Yeah. Well,
so
it's
I think
named
there's
as one of
real
our
connection there.
it's named as one of our values. So I believe
Yeah,
it was in my first or second year preaching at the conference. I actually gave them a list of Brene Brown's like values list that she talks about in her book, Dare to Lead, which is like
yeah,
my leadership Bible, which makes sense because she talks a lot about bravery in there as well. And when I was considering what are the values of women in youth ministry, I chose three, and one of them is safety. We have to be
right,
safe, especially because we come from so many like theological frameworks, and we come from different families and sexualities and gender identities and representations and families, and like there's just so many things about us that are different, and yet we believe we need to be a community that is safe for one another, even if
right,
we disagree with some fundamental things. And then the second value that we chose was diversity, which I think is
right,
a piggyback off of that safety. Is we want to make sure that our group represents the church and that our leadership team represents the group. And then the third one is bravery. We
right,
want to encourage women to do brave things when they're
right,
together and be brave with each other and sharing their vulnerabilities. But we also want them to do brave things back in their congregations as well.
right.
And so that was a value that was stated early on after we LLC'd ourselves. And so it makes sense that it ended up on my body because it is embedded in everything. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I just want to draw that thread together. Okay, I want to circle back.
Yes.
Decision not to have conference last year. Soft girl era.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
After saying no to a lot of bad things in my life, I had to say no to something that was my favorite thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes life is like that. Sometimes you say no to things you don't like, and sometimes you have to say no to things that you love in order to take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And, we tried to scramble and put a conference together last minute, but like every sign was saying no. And I'm so glad we didn't, because when we were planning it, I didn't even know where I was going to live next. I had to sell my
Right.
house in order to get my husband out of debt. And yeah, right. Like, what a great life. And so I didn't even know where I was going to live. I didn't know if I was going to be in a house or an apartment or what was going to happen. And so, much of my home is women youth ministry storage. So yeah, I didn't know what was next.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wanted to say no to some things that I loved in order to care for myself. And I decided that the two most important things in that season were caring for my body and my mental health and doing a really good job at my 9 to 5 job, which I adore. And has is a lot of work right now as we're rebuilding youth
Yeah.
ministry there. So I felt like those were the two biggest values that I had, and I trusted that women in youth ministry could continue to run as a Facebook community and nothing more for a year.
Yeah. And I wouldn't call it nothing more. I mean, I think it was online. I mean, I think it's still a valuable community outside of a Facebook group for a lot of people, and it
Sure.
exists in a lot of different ways. Um, but yeah, I think that was, we all totally understood that being the decision that needed to be made, even if it wasn't as obvious to everyone why it was being made as it was to some of us. But also, you're right, that just like, it just wasn't like we were having, it felt like we were trying to force something that we didn't even want to do by the time we got to spring. And we love it. Like, obviously, we love conference, but we didn't have a venue. We didn't like we kept having venues fall through,
I
and we like
know.
were like in kind of circles about what we were doing. And it's how different it felt last year to feeling this year is
Yeah.
astronomical. So
Yeah.
speaking of this year, I'd love to talk about what your hopes for this year are
Yeah.
and what kind of where we're at now.
Yeah. So, someone pointed out to me several months ago, they're like, some stuff with women youth ministry is actually falling through the cracks because you have the exact same number of moderators and leaders as you did when this group was like 2,000 people. Now you're 6,000 people. And that was hard to hear, but it was what I needed to hear. And so we've expanded our moderator team by over double. And again, reflecting those values of safety and diversity to assure that we have voices from all of our community representative leadership. So we have friends from more conservative Southern Baptist or apostolic spaces, and we have friends from more progressive Episcopal and UCC spaces and DOC. And, we have we have members who are women and have wives, and we have members who are worship at a church where that would not be allowed. And we have women with kids and women who don't ever want kids. And, now we have a divorced woman. And, and, we represent just the breadth of what the church can be in the fullness of its theology and family and gender and sexuality and belief system. And even though we have these beliefs that even theologically, which theologically means a lot to all of us, differ on, we keep our values of safety, diversity, and bravery at the forefront. And that's why I'm also really excited for you to meet all of them as we do podcasts on them this season so that you can get to hear the stories of everyone else who's on the team as well. Yeah. Some of my other hopes, the conference is coming up in March, and it really is. It's like, God was like, absolutely not last year. God is like, heck to the yeah this year. Because it's coming along so beautifully. And it's so lovely to have all of our partners and sponsors chase us down and say, what do you need? Like, there was a particular partner last year who was like, I would financially make it happen on my own if you wanted to in March. And I remember having to say to them, that is so kind of you. However, I got divorced 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Like, I need a break.
I need a minute.
Yeah. I was like, I don't even know where I'm going to be living then.
Right.
So let's just take a step back. Whereas this year, people are just really excited. And I know that you get to chat with all of them, and they're all voicing to you what this community means to them, which again, just it's so humbling and just good.
Yeah. I also think the team's really strong this year. You built a
Mm.
team of people who are really invested and who are really committed. And
Hmm.
so it feels more like it doesn't have to run on the Heather machine. Like it doesn't have to be just the Energizer Bunny Heather. I think part of like the growth you've made in creating more sustainable like systems for yourself is also reflected in women in youth ministry. That it feels like it feels less like Heather's driving this train and we're just all trying to like hold on and more like, and not that it was ever a bad thing. It was just like a lot of us felt like we couldn't keep up. And I say as a person who worked a very similar job to you when like was keeping up, but like it was hard. And it feels like now we're more in a space where you have created a system that invites people into more like sustainable participation that is aligned with everyone's like capacities and gifts and values and um yeah, and it feels more like we're doing it collaboratively in a way that I know for me it's been really fun and I think it's been fun for other people too.
Hmm.
So I think
Yeah,
that's important. Yeah.
we've talked about this a little bit, but I think like part of the hard thing about being like that strong person, right, is like people don't know when you need help.
Right.
And boy, have I crashed out a ton in the last year and asked for help. Oh man. And it's been good for me.
And it's
Uh
been good for people around you. Like, I mean, like, what about, like, it feels like such a treasure to be and such a privilege to be invited in, and to be asked to help carry a burden or to help walk alongside or be part of a community that you love. Like, it's not a burden. It's a privilege. And so,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and you've
we're
never made it
grateful.
feel like a burden. I mean, and that's the thing is like that's the magic of like these women that I get to have in my life is like you guys have, I know there have been moments where I haven't been my best. I mean, I don't know. I was joking with someone last week. Like, I do feel like, you get like a year grace period post divorce or post trauma to kind of act a fool. And you guys let me have it. And so now I have to get my act together now.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh, true.
but like, again, like I remember breaking up with this boy that I should not have been with in the first place. And you sent me charcuterie Instacart to my house and only for me to get back with him.
Listen, I'd send it again. I'd send it again. I forgot that you got back to him. That was after the first breakup and not the second breakup.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh. And if you forgave me for that,
I forgot that it happened. Not so much I forgave you for it.
well, I hope the forgiveness
I'll send you
stands.
more charcuterie. No, it stands.
Oh,
Whatever. I truly don't care. I'll send you more. I send you charcuterie because you're upset. Like the context doesn't like matter that much to me. Like you don't need a reason to be like, I need support from my friend right now. Like
I was a product of my own actions. What we have learned through the last year of my dating life is the phrase "do it for the plot" is not for me.
that's not for you. You don't need that encouragement. I think some people need to they need to be told like, hey, take a risk. But like you're so good at taking risks. And I think sometimes we don't need to take a risk.
Yeah. So on to my soft girl era.
On to your soft girl era. Okay, I've been trying to get you to talk about this for like 30 minutes.
Yes.
Basically, I want you to talk about your garden and about your cute
Yeah.
house and all the other
So
things
yeah,
you're
this
doing.
is the longest episode we'll ever have, but I
As it
think
should be.
I do think it's important for people to. I mean, it's been 2 years. Yeah, and plus Taylor Swift was 2 hours, and that this will not be that
We
because
have
your kids have to get up
time.
from nap eventually.
Yeah, pretty soon.
Okay, so yeah, the last year I've really just been focused on soft girl era. So I started dating immediately, which what has been a wild journey, and I do feel like I'm finally a year later at an even place to understand what I want there. I don't think I told you this, but yesterday I listened to this book called Ask a Matchmaker, and it's by this person named Maria. She's a fourth generation matchmaker. And I
Wow.
listened to it as I was flying back from Asheville yesterday from a conference. And oh my gosh, it was like transformative. I know it's only been a day, but she had you like write a dating manifesto. And so I like wrote this dating, I'll send it to you so you can read it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, none of the boys I've dated in the last year have been this. What am I doing with my life?
Mhm.
And so that's been really helpful to think through. Yeah, I feel like I've learned a lot about who I am as a person. I was able to buy a new home, which was just
Mm. So
gosh.
good.
Like having again housing instability is a part of my story. My parents were homeless when I left college, and my sister was homeless, and she ended up being adopted by my grandparents, and so that also meant I was homeless in that time. I mean, it was just a mess, and so having my housing threatened by my partner was hard for me. I mean, that was really the final straw for me.
Right.
And so being able to have a home that's mine, and even though I threw in all my savings to renovate it, which might have been a little irresponsible,
Yeah.
my therapist approved because she was like, you kind of need to do this in order to have your space, like
Right.
to really create your safe space. And so anyway, I got TikToks on my TikTok of all the before and afters, but it's like my own little Barbie dream house. It's pink and glittery and cute and a little sacrilegious at points, but also super religious at points. And it's lovely and it's mine. Like
Yeah.
it's everything. And I was able to get my garden back up at this new house. Like I said, I've spent so much money renovating it. And I didn't think that I was going to be able to afford building a garden, but I was like, I'm going to believe that I'm going to figure this out somehow monetarily.
Right.
And so I just kept pushing forward, and I built this huge garden bed, and gosh, it was a saga. Like I had 3 cubic yards of dirt dropped off on my driveway, and then I by myself had to move it in 2 days and in the rain, and it was crazy, like just
Yeah.
bananas of me to do that. And I've been gardening all summer. I got over my fear of botulism, which is probably the bravest thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah. So brave.
Thank you, thank you. And I've been canning, and yeah, I've just been finding a lot of joy there. It I gardened kind of chaotically this year. Like I got all my plants from a lady off Facebook Marketplace, which means they aren't all what I thought they were.
I love this for you.
And yeah, I've just been like trying to touch grass every day and get outside and get off my phone and be with the nature and connect with the sun. And I'm on phone and FaceTime with my friends all the time, and you all the time. And yeah, I've been really pushing myself lately to try to stay off the dating apps a little and go to events around my city, which is hard. Also, I'm like older. I'm 35, and like most of these guys are like in their 20s, early 30s. So I don't really want to date them, but I'm at least meeting new people. And
Yeah.
oh, I haven't told you, but the event organizer I met last week, oh, she's obsessed with me. She's been texting me every day this week. And she last night she was like, there's tons of guys here who are your type. And I'm like, I love that I met you a week ago and you already know my type. And so
Yeah.
anyway, just making new friends. I have a group
Making new
chat with
friends.
people I met at a dating event, and we text
Yeah.
every day about, I mean, it's just like everything is different. And I mean,
Yeah.
leaving a church community I was in for 10 years and being honest about what happened
Right.
meant a lot of my friends won't touch me anymore
Right.
because they still go to that church. They made their choice, and that's their choice. And I get it.
Right.
I get it because I know personally what it's like to leave your church community. It was hard. That was probably the hardest thing I've actually ever done.
Right.
No offense to my ex-husband, but that was not the hardest thing I've ever done.
That was pretty self-evident by the end.
Yeah. But so I get that, right? But I had to and then I'm not tied to a partner anymore. So I lose that piece of identity. So who's in my community? And I made this intentional
Right.
choice to stay in Indianapolis. And so now I got to start all over in the city that I had all these memories in, that I moved to for this.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So just being soft. So some of the things that I keep in mind is this year, my mantra has been, what's the best that could happen? I have it on a poster in my dining room. And
That's so cute.
I
love
chose
that.
this mantra before I even was under contract in my home. Yeah. And so to be
Yeah.
able to hang it in my home, so
Yeah.
good. Yeah, I am working on staying emotionally honest, being just really honest about where I'm at. When I'm having bad days, I'm reaching out to people and I'm telling people I'm having bad days. I'm no longer having bad days by myself anymore.
Yeah.
I'm searching for consistency. So trying to find patterns in my life and trying to choose people, whether it's a friendship or a romantic partner, who can model that consistency for me. And like I said, I'm just like putting myself out there in new ways as well, going to the events, making new friends, expanding my circle. Yeah. And just trying to be my softest life. I think I'm done with my soft girl era because now I want to get back into my CEO era.
Yeah. But you needed this. And I think there's a really like beautiful like symbolism, and I don't think like we're not at like there's no like happily ever after. There's no like and then we stopped and then this was it. It was this forever. But like I do think there's a beautiful kind of like closed loopness when we are thinking about like this whole arc that we've been talking about and this whole pattern of like you create for other people what you need, and that this finally what you're talking about like both physically in your home that you've created this garden that allows you to grow and plant, and you get to reap the fruits of it and text us all your little pictures of your cute little tomatoes and your green beans and your squash, and um having your garden and your like, cute Barbie dream house. Like there's a sense of like that you have something that you've created only for yourself. And it's not, you didn't create a beautiful Barbie dream house for someone else that you thought needed it. You created it for yourself. Um, and there's a sense of finally being able to advocate for yourself the way you've always advocated for others and create safety and care and support for yourself the way you've always created it for other people. So it's been beautiful to watch you do that in your friendships and in your home because it has been different. I do think um, the way I have seen you show up as a friend in the past year has been different than what it was before you got divorced, than what it was the last place you worked. And part of this just like friendships get closer over time, a lot of times with consistency. But also it's like I do think that emotional honesty has really allowed, I know for me, it has allowed me to draw closer to you as a friend because I feel more like I know what's going on in your world. And that's always been a gift. And so hearing you talk about this life where you've built this Barbie dream house and you go out, you hang out with your neighbors and your friends, and you've got like your garden and your groups of friends, and you've got all these like it feels like a much more sustainable life. And it makes me think, as you ponder back to April's question about 63-year-old Heather, do you feel like, and where you want to be at 63-year-old Heather, where do you feel like you are now as far as being where you want to be in 30 years?
Oh, my body is on track for sure. Like
Yeah.
I know, like I was at a gathering this week with youth pastors who are still way thinner than I, and I was leading us to our next restaurant, and I was booking it up this really tall hill, and I got to the top, and I wasn't panning, and everybody else was, and I was like, I worked hard for that, and they were like, you walked
Yeah.
way too fast, and I was like, that's because I'm healthy now, like
Yeah. Because I can.
I'm still that thick girl, but I'm like, I've worked so hard on myself, and and so I do feel like my body can keep up with the intensity of life that I enjoy. And there's always work to be done, but I feel like I'm in a much better place. Like I've done the hard work of advocating with doctors in order to continue doing that.
Right.
Um, you know, it's hard because in many ways on paper, it looks like I am even further away from having a family than I was when I was with
Was married.
April. Yes, then when
Yeah.
I was, yeah, we're talking, yes, when I was married. But I don't think he was ever going to give me that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and that's hard. And the hardest part about divorce is grieving the futures you dreamed of with your
Yeah.
partner, by yourself. And gosh, I really want to be a mom, right? Like,
Yeah.
really do. And that's hard to know, like, that could never happen, but it has given me a chance to reframe how I think about family.
Yeah.
I'm an aunt to all my friends' kids, and their kids love me so well, and I'm open to dating a partner who has children or who even doesn't want children, but maybe has a bunch of sib spring of their own that I can be bonus aunt to. I'm open to what family looks like, but I know it's still something that I really want and am open to reimagining. I did tell my best friend that if her and her partner break up, I'm just going to move in and help her raise her kids. And
Yeah.
then I can raise kids, but not birth them, and then
Which
we
is
can
honestly great. Yeah.
yeah, and quit dating in this year of our Lord 2025.
Yeah.
And then the last part of it is, I'm in a job that compensates me fairly and pays towards my retirement. So I'm way closer to retirement than I was in the Methodist Church or the Southern Baptist Church. And I have work. I have all the balance. I'm able to work as hard as I want to work, which I love working hard, but also take naps and care for myself and be me. So I feel like I'm closer, even though sometimes it feels like I'm not because I hit reset. I know that I am.
Right. Yeah. And I think I would honor and yes and amen all of that. And I have high hopes that you will get all of the things that 63-year-old Heather wants. And I am proud of you for everything you've created for yourself and your whole life. Like I think you have throughout your story, you have a lot of things to be really proud of. Even if they're things that you wound up, they were like decisions that wound up not serving you forever.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have a lot to be really proud of for the ways you've chosen to respond to struggle, for the ways that you have cared for other people, for the ways you've cared for yourself, for the decisions you've made. I think you have a lot to be proud of in every chapter of your story. And this one in particular, I think you should be really proud of.
Thank you.
So,
I'm on divorce TikTok, and I saw this
for sure.
TikTok. I've seen many TikToks that have said, like, I refuse to believe that the last, 8 years of my life were a waste
Yeah.
because I'm not wasting the next 60 years of my life.
Yeah.
And I have to keep that in mind when I grieve the things that I'm grieving.
Right. Yeah. It's never wasted. It's even if it doesn't wind up working out for the long term, or if it doesn't wind up being what you thought it was, you were still you and you still showed up and you still learned a lot about yourself during that time. And you still got to grow in ways that no longer serve you and you're now doing something else. But I don't think anything's ever wasted.
Yeah.
Before we move towards wrapping up our time together, do you have anything else you want to make sure you say before I ask our final question? Registration link is live. WY, what is it? womenyouthministry.com/conference.
Yeah, it sure is.
Conference? I don't know. I said that.
Listen, if you want to hang out with me in real life and
that's it. If you want to have these conversations in real life, I will be there. Heather will be there. A couple hundred of the coolest women you've ever met will be there.
Yeah.
So.
And I don't believe in small talk, if you guys can't tell. So
what?
You can get all the dirty details in person.
We'll name names in person.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're like, I'm going to stop this joke and I'm going to say it when we're off mic. No.
I had jokes too, but I decided not to.
Say it off mic. We'll say it off mic. Okay. So Heather, you have ended every episode of the Women Youth Ministry Conference so far by asking women, what would you want to say to encourage women in the women listening? So Heather, what do you want to say?
I think you can say it with me. Be brave. Right? Like as I live into this new stage of my life, and I'm honest about all the things that have been going on behind the scenes with people, I realize how much other people are struggling too.
Yeah.
And how we as women are not being really emotionally honest about the things that are going on in our lives because this need to care for everyone else always outweighs the need to care for ourselves. It's the way we've been socialized. It's the way we've been socialized as women. It's the way we've been socialized as Christians. It's the way we've been socialized as wives or as mothers. And I'm fed up with it.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm not caring for other people or nurturing other people, but I just feel like I'm, for the first time in my life, saying, what if I faced my fears? What's the best that could happen?
Right.
And life isn't perfect. Actually, I haven't had a day where I've cried in a while, other than like these happy tears.
Like you cried like 3 times in this conversation.
Okay. I'm still crying, actually. Thank you very much. But I can't remember the last lonely or sad day I had. I think it's been at least a month. Yeah. Gosh, that feels good because it's usually been like at least once a week where I have a crash out day. And I don't know. I just like over time, it's going to get better. Gosh, I was so sad I was so sad for a long time, and I'm not anymore. And
Yeah.
even the moments that I have now, that are sad, I remind myself I worked hard for this.
Right. Right.
I worked hard for any silent moment or bit of loneliness or whatever. Because there's not a moment where I doubt myself anymore.
Right.
I don't have anxiety. I haven't had a panic attack in, a long time, at least a year or two.
Yeah.
Life can be better. So be brave. Do the thing that scares the shit out of you. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Well, hey, thank you, Heather. Thank you for your vulnerability and your honesty and for being willing to share not only your gifts and your talents, which you've always shared so easily, but yourself and your heart and what goes on inside your pretty little head and behind your perfect eye makeup all the time. I know I will speak for the entire Women in Youth Ministry community, that we are very grateful and feel very blessed, not only by your leadership, but by your character and by your presence and by the testimony of your life and your, and what you've brought to this community.
Thank you. It's such an honor. It's such an honor to serve in this way and to be trusted. And women are amazing and we can do amazing things. And to be able to be surrounded by 6,000 amazing ones, gosh, what a cool thing. What a cool thing to be a part of.
I agree.
I'm grateful.
Grateful too.
Well, I guess I can close us out because
I don't know.
It's back to being my podcast. I guess.
That's your podcast again, I guess.
The most tearful ending ever. Well, thank you so much,
We'll do another
Kat.
episode some other time when Heather records it with some other person. Is that a good sign up?
No, I've got this. I just want to say thank you, Kat. You really have been a person who's walked with me, was so close in the last year. And I think even the people that I claim as my best friends and my sisters will respect when I say this. No one has pursued me and asked such deep and invasive questions the way that you have the last year. And you have been so responsible for a lot of my reflection and my growth. And I'm grateful for you because divorce is this really weird thing that people are like, okay, I guess she's better now. Or like, what happened? Or what did she do to deserve it? Right. And no one makes a meal train for you when you get divorced.
Right.
No one shows up randomly at your house just like, oh, the scandal happened. Goodbye. And you didn't treat me that way. And you pursued me at all times. And I'm grateful for that. And so there is nobody better to interview me and to help me share my story than you. And I love you.
Love you too, Heather.
Well, friends, the podcast is back and maybe less tearful in the future episodes.
It won't be. You could bring a whole bunch of women here and have them ask about their call in 10 minutes. Like, no, everyone's going to cry.
Yeah. And I'm the biggest baby of us all. So, okay. Well, friends, look forward to the rest of this season. I'm so excited to share my friends with you all. And I'll catch you guys all in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed that podcast, don't forget to rate us 5 stars. You can follow us on Meta, Twitter, and TikTok at Women in YM. If you're a woman, we'd love to have you as part of our Facebook community. Go to womeninyouthministry.com to learn more. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Women in Youth Ministry podcast.